Poor clueless Mark Cuban. Michael McLean, brassballsvideos.com. You can grab a copy of my brand new ebook, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days, by going to brassballsvideos.com. It's a free download, nothing to buy. Put in your email, brand new ebook. It's about a 22-pager. 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next 30 days. brassballsvideos.com. So, clown world for Mark Cuban. There's a lot of billionaires, there's a lot of celebrities, a lot of pro athletes that I get a lot of opportunities to laugh out loud at. And if you ever want to study a virtue signaling, capitalist turned socialist, man, Cuban is your guy. A friend of mine who's in one of my high-level $30,000 masterminds faxed me a copy of this tweet that Marky Cuban sent out the other day, bragging, which is, of course, his deal with his habit of virtue signaling to you and me, how he pays his own share. He gladly pays his own share of taxes as an American citizen. I think the tweet read something like, I pay what I owe, and I'm happy to pay maximum amounts of tax to a country that's given me so much. And then he talks about how he takes a run at President Trump, alleging or signaling that he hasn't paid his fair share of taxes like the great Mark Cuban has. In the tweet, he mentions that he gladly can't wait to send $288 million, wire it to the IRS this week. $288 million in taxes because he's such a righteous guy. The full of himself Cuban, who used to be a capitalist. I consider Mark Cuban like small business owners, entrepreneurs, God-made, producers and rainmakers. They're my favorite people on earth. They're right there with farmers and the military and our first responders. They're the top of the chain for me. But when I see a guy like this, who's made his fortune, I think he's one of the luckiest. I consider Cuban one of the luckiest I have ever seen in my life. I believe, and I'm one of these guys who's always like, you make your own luck. But in Cuban's case, every time I see that guy or listen to that guy talking nonsense on Shark Tank, or just creating noise to listen to himself talk, I'm just like, man, he is not in the same league as other guys at his financial level. I mean, when you watch him on Shark Tank, he always has an opinion. He always has something to say. He always has a doubt or a criticism. But at the end of the day, Cuban almost never buys anything. He almost never puts his money where his mouth is. He's long on style, short on substance. So in this tweet, he's virtue signaling, right? If you don't know what virtue signaling is, this is what it looks like from a capitalist turned socialist. He talks about he's looking for cheap likes. He's looking for cheap attaboys. He's looking for anything and everything that'll bring him, oh, he's such a great guy. He's such a noble guy. He's so much better. He's so much a better person than a Kevin O'Leary. He's a far superior human being than to a Donald Trump or a Richard Branson or an Elon Musk. He's virtuous when the other guys are corrupt and evil. So he brags about how he's going to wire $288 million, which is a lot of money to the IRS, but he's not just doing it, he's also proud to do it. He's proud that he's sending $250 million to the most corrupt, mismanaged business in America, the U.S. government. So on top of that, he brags about how he's paying his fair share, and he wouldn't have it any other way. But then Cuban, he hopes you can't do math. He hopes you're like the low IQ normies or the great unwashed. He hopes that you can't do math. So just alone with him selling his Dallas Mavericks NBA team, he sold the Mavericks for $3.5 billion. So he sold the Mavericks. I'm just trying to get my numbers right here. He sold the Mavericks for $3.5 billion, somewhere in that neighborhood. And he just said, and he did it this year, he just said that he's writing a tax check for $288 million, and that he's paying his fair share when a lot of people aren't. Now, I'm no rocket scientist when it comes to mathematics like my daughter, but when I do even the math on that comes to a tax rate, wait for it, of 12%. He's only paying 12% tax this year, and this is only one of his deals. This is only including the sale of the Dallas Mavericks at $3.5 billion. So where's the rest of it? And here's the rule, and I remember my grandmother used to say this all the time. She said, Michael, never trust anybody. Never trust anybody that brags about their civil responsibility or brags about, how much tax they pay or how virtuous they are. She said that's always a red flag for a person that's overcompensating for something. And I never really understood that at the time. I was just a teenager. But anybody that brags about their civil responsibility and how they paid their share, and I'm thankful that I can pay taxes, and on and on and on, their own nobility, it's a red flag for somebody that's overcompensating. So here's a guy who actually is only paying 12%, where he's trying to present himself as this guy who's paying his fair share. And this is only on the Mavericks deal. So he's paying a big number in $288 million. There's no question about that. But in regard to his income of just selling the basketball team, he's at 12%. You know who he should be actually, virtue signaling for? You know who he should be looking for cheap likes and cheap attaboys and cheap popularity on social media? You know who he should be social justicing for? His accountant. That's the real hero in this story. His accountant is the real champion. His accountant is the person who should be getting the views and the likes and the attaboys and the gold stars. Are you kidding me? His accountant at 12% tax, that's the person I want to meet. That's the person I want to hear. That's the person I want to give the credit to. So always go on what you see. always use the Bill Parcells rule, and don't go on reputations. Don't put people like that, posers and actors and social justice warriors and capitalists turned socialists after they're billionaires. The Bill Gates of the world, the Mark Cubans of the world. Just go on what you see and what your gut tells you, and pay those guys no mind. Go on what you see and not what they tell you. That was a exercise in virtue signaling, in social justice, in nobility, in narcissism. I mean, I knew the Cuban's full of himself. I know that he's one of the most overrated entrepreneurs in America. Certainly one of the luckiest. But man, oh man, I didn't know he was a narcissist at this level. So I got a good chuckle out of that. I hope you got a good chuckle out of that. And we can all now sleep better knowing that little Mark Cuban has paid his fair share. He's paid what he's owed. He hasn't stiffed the country like Elon Musk, or hasn't stiffed the country like Donald Trump, or stiffed the company like his other billionaire pals. He's a little bit above that, a little bit more noble, a little bit more principled, a little bit, better person. And thank God he's paid his taxes this year, because where would we be without narcissists like Mark Cuban? Oh, and by the way, don't think that this entire show hasn't been about testing the great unwashed, testing the normies to see, is there a chance that he could down the road run for the White House? His ego is so massive, he's so into himself, but he wants to make sure that he has almost a sure thing. He wants to make sure that if he ran for the Democratic Party after Biden, he wants to know that he's got a loaded deck, he's got a stacked deck where he can almost not lose. Because on the political trail, he would just get slaughtered. He would just get slaughtered by Trump in terms of work ethic, in terms of debate, in terms of self-promotion, in terms of everything. So he's testing the waters for after this election, when regardless of what happens, you no longer have a Biden, you no longer have a Trump, and it's a brand new playing field. Am I popular enough to win? Do people buy what I'm selling? Am I able to virtue signal and do enough things that I would get enough attaboys, enough support that I actually would have a good chance of winning this? And that's what his life is about right now. It's about testing the waters for the White House. And I really appreciate my friend and client sending me that faxed tweet, because I laughed out loud when I read that one. So my new ebook, 5 Ways to Unfuck Your Life in the Next 30 Days. It's one of the most powerful PDFs I put together. You can print it off, you can read it online, whatever you want. It's free, but you got to go to brassballsvideos.com today. Enter your email. I'll email it to you. I'm an email guy. If you want a free copy, I email it to you. If you don't want to stay on my list, that's fine. You can unsubscribe. I don't care either way. But Brass Balls Videos, the link is below. The ebook is now there available. I'll keep it up for a few more days. After that, it's going to be a product that I'm going to be selling for pay what you want, but it's going to be for real money. So if you want a free copy of it, 5 ways to unfuck your life in the next 30 days, go click on the link below, put in your email, and I'll email it to you within 5 minutes. That's it. Man, that was pure entertainment. I feel good just telling that story. My dad had a good laugh at that. My brother had a good laugh at that. Some of my clients had a good laugh at that. That is pure comedy, guys like Cuban. Fantasy sold as reality. He should get into the comedic business and take on Jerry Seinfeld if he actually had the sack to do it, which he doesn't. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that can change yours. Be relentless.